Hello, beautiful world. I hope you're having a beautiful time of life as much as possible. I've decided to just come today to the internet to speak a little bit about a guitar topic that I quite enjoy and that I find a lot of people are very curious about and very interested in. And so I'm just going to talk a little bit about how I think about some of these things and give you a bit of a rundown of how I think someone could approach them with explanations as to why. So, the first thing is to tell you that I'm talking about chords today. What are chords? How do you use chords? How do you play all of these interesting and pretty chords that musicians like Jimi Hendrix are playing? That's my best Jimi Hendrix impression. So, how do you do that stuff, right? It looks so cool. How do you do that stuff? There's a number of techniques and interesting things. Here's a quick rundown of some areas that would be good for someone to hit to have a decent understanding of how this stuff works, according to me. So you start off by learning some open chords. What are open chords? They're chords like this G major, which incorporate open strings. This C major is another, this D major and this D minor are another, this A minor and this A major, another, this E minor and this E major are another. So how do you get to know these? Number one way is to have a lesson with somebody who can show them to you and give you a way to remember or something to refer back to. Number two way is to look online because it's quite easy to get a YouTube video where someone will tell you what the basic shapes of these are. But it's great to have someone to have a look at how you're doing things and tell you if you're doing okay when you start. But anyway, that's a valid way to start. Go online and look for videos, simple guitar lessons, which can teach you some open chords. Maybe you get a capo, which is a tool that you use on the guitar to transpose music. Don't worry too much about that if you don't get it. And then you can play a wide variety of songs using the open chord shapes. So whatever method you use, let's say now you understand your open chords, you can play that no sweat. What do you do next? The next thing is to find some kind of a way to learn how to use these open shapes that you've learned here to unlock the guitar, so that you can play the stuff you know how to play here anywhere, because the guitar is tuned the same way as it is here, as it is here, as it is here. The pattern is constant. Therefore, any shape you use here has a valid application somewhere. You just need to learn how to use it. So, I mean, take this A minor open shape, right? You need to analyze the shape of that and learn what the pattern of the notes is. You have the open A string, then you have this E, here, which is going to be one string up and another fret in between them. Then up on the next string in the same fret, you have another A, and then you have in the first fret on the B string a C. So those are the notes that make up an A minor, and this is the shape. If I take my index finger and I put it here in the first fret on the A string, so I've moved from the open string into the first fret, right? A distance that we call a semitone or a half step into what we call B flat or A sharp. Don't worry about that. Just get the idea of moving up from there to there, right? So I play that string. That takes the place of my open string from the open A minor shape. Yes, A minor. From the open A minor shape, that takes the place of that string. So you have to replicate the pattern. You go up one string, skip a fret, up to the next string in the same fret, and then up to the next string, go down one fret. And now you're playing a B flat minor. E flat minor is here, C minor is here, G minor is here. All good stuff to learn. And so once you learn about this, you learn about how to take these patterns that you know and play them everywhere on the guitar. Then the next thing is to get some sense of how it works, what you're doing, Learn some songs, of course. Now that you can play these chords, you learn how to play bar chords where your index finger is holding more than one string at a time. Then you can take these open shapes like the E minor and put it here. And then you just hold these two strings here, in this fret, and then the rest you let it ring with your index. Once you can do that, learn more songs, learn this like G minor, to this B flat major, to this C minor, to this D minor. Learn little chord progressions like that to practice. Very good practice for bar chords. So once you've done that, you know how to move these shapes around, you know the logic of it, how it works. Take another step deeper into learning about how it works. So the next thing is going to be scales and triads. But don't worry about it too much, honestly. It's not supposed to be scary. The first thing you learn is to recognize that the first initial open chords you learned, and as well when you move those same shapes around the instrument to create different chords, they're constructed from a basis of something called a scale. A scale is a group of notes that flows in a certain way, following a certain pattern. So you can learn the pattern that creates a major scale, but I'm not gonna tell you about that today. But you can learn that pattern. Once you know that pattern and you know how the distances between those notes work on a guitar, you can play the scale. So to demonstrate a scale, here's a C major open chord and here's a C major scale. Pay attention to when the note that I play in the scale is a note from the chord. Sorry, that's a mistake. That's not the scale. You can see that all of the notes of the chord are contained within the scale. Learn about scales and learn some patterns for scales. That's one. You can apply that anywhere using the same principle of maintaining the relationship between the notes, the distance in terms of which fret do you go to from this one and which string do you go to from this one. Sorry. That's an E major scale from this E here. The next thing you learn is about triads. Once you know the different positions of the scale, you know how to construct the scale, and especially you know how to identify the chords within the scale, then you learn about triads. Triads are groups of 3 notes. If you start from a root, like in C major, you start from C, that's the root, that's what we call it. Then you play the scale, you go up, that's 1, 2, 3, keep that 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and keep that 5. Those 3 notes are a triad. So if you look at the C major open chord, it goes C, E, G. Then it goes G, C, E. Those are the same notes, just repeated in a different order. That's what we call a triad. To construct these chords, learn what their triads are. And once you know what their triads are, and you can identify how those triads come from the scale, and you can identify how those chords that you learned, first as open chords and then as chords that you can move around, also come from the scale. Now you have such a strong foundation, and you've learned songs for your open chords, and you've learned songs with your barred chords, and you've learned how to move these shapes around and play different music. You're a lot freer now. You have a sense of what's going on, and there's so much more that I could talk about, but instead I guess I'll just try and have a little jam with some chords. That was the best one so far. Yeah.